Yeah. All right. So, pretty sure we're live. We're definitely recording. It says we're streaming. It's the Modern Relics podcast. I'm Angel. He's Lucky. I can't see. Oh, there we are.
We're good.
It's very late to YouTube today. Very late. So, yeah, we're live. Imagine that, dude. We're back.
Good news. Fantastic.
It's great news. I feel
It is.
empowered and excited that we're live. It's been a while.
It has. We missed last week again.
We did.
That was a combination. My fault.
I mean, sometimes you miss a week, you know?
Yeah, life. When and we've said this a couple of times, but when you're running around doing stuff for kids and you've got careers and jobs and everything, that sometimes it just throws you a curveball in the exact moment that you're supposed to be doing this, and it makes for a headache.
And with a budget like our podcast has, it's hard not to just be out on the yacht all the time, and you sometimes forget. Shit, I was supposed to be recording.
No. Yeah, we were supposed to be on the mics.
No, it's all good.
Also, last week, to be fair, also there wasn't really a lot to talk about, and I think we both decided we're like, we could get on there and just kind of shoot the breeze and ramble.
Yeah.
But the other things that we both had were just kind of taking precedence. So apologies again, but we're back and we got a lot to talk about this week. So I'm pretty excited.
This week we've got a boatload. It's floating behind our yacht. Okay. Where do we start today? I know you've got some news. The eclipse just happened.
Yes, it did. It happened for sure.
Yeah. Where do you want to go? You want to go with late breaking? You want to start with an eclipse?
Let's go with the eclipse to get it out of the way. Because, man, were there a lot of, social media hype about from every corner of the tinfoil hat community and religious communities and all of that. I ignored every single one of them.
Yeah.
Everything from the idea that the towns were and the whole states were putting themselves in a state of emergency, that it was going over like 25 towns named Nineveh or whatever,
right?
To end of the world predictions, to fault line predictions, to rapture predictions, to aliens.
It was every conceivable scrunching down of the tightening of the tinfoil hat.
Right.
It was
CERN was opening up a portal that day.
Yep.
Like all of the things were being thrown at this eclipse, and I ignored all of them.
Yeah.
In fact,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think we share that neither one of us even left the house.
Didn't even open the blinds.
Yeah.
I could not care less. So I do have a fun story about the last one we had a few years ago. I was still in Seattle. I was at work. I was in the corporate office of where I work over at Redacted. And I'm walking by a window. I think I'm on the 5th or 6th floor. And it's cubicle row. You know what I mean? There's just a lot of like little office things. And I'm like scuttling by and I look out the window and I did a double take and I'm looking down and there's just hundreds of people all standing in the parking lot, sidewalk, whatever. And they're all looking up. I froze for a second.
Like domesticated turkeys.
Is it happening? Like, is there an invasion? What's the eclipse is today? Nice. I forgot. And then I just kept walking. Could not care less. That was my one moment of like, what is going? All right. And then I just left. And that's my big story.
Weird?
Couldn't care less.
That I've never found eclipses fascinating. Like everyone's like, ooh, the eclipse. And I'm like, I I don't find it interesting.
Yeah,
I don't want to look up at the sun. I don't want to look up at the like.
And I'm not gonna like shit on people that do, but I have friends even as recent as this one this week that were like, we're flying to the path of totality. We're gonna get like, hey man, bring a good camera, take some pretty pictures. Like if that is a moment you want to immortalize, go for it. I think it's cool and it's a great excuse to travel for something. But like,
sure,
I don't know. I would rather look at cars.
Yeah, there's so many other things I'd rather look at.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And
you know, and I'm not an anti-science like guy. Like it's just not fascinating to me. And I know that puts me on the odds.
I think like, by you not enjoying eclipses, you're very anti-science.
Sure.
Because that stands to reason.
I'll take that. Right. Yeah, I just didn't find it interesting. And
same.
On top of it not being interesting, the only thing that would have been interesting is if one of all of the 150 different predictions that were going to happen that day happened, would have made it interesting. But none of them did.
None of them did.
Not a single one.
I do think the best
maybe
outcome
CERN did something that we just haven't figured out yet. But I mean, we might be getting a whole bunch more mandala effects or, you know, aberrations of weather or whatever. But like, I felt kind of grumpy yesterday. Maybe that had something to do with it. But
I think the best thing that came out of it is I'm just rapid scrolling through Instagram and someone was like, the real eclipse or whatever. And there's like a bright light, but it's not the sun. I think it's their porch light. And then there's just a steady cam on it. And then they like start passing a black fluffy cat in front of the screen in front of it. And the cat's head gets it. It's like, meow. That was it. I was like, okay, I can rewatch that, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Nothing crazy.
The only thing that happened. Yeah. The only thing that happened was I think Trump put out a weird ad.
Yeah.
His head, the eclipse.
Yeah.
Which everybody was freaking out about. But outside of that, man, nothing, no one disappeared. Nothing came up from the depths of the earth.
Yeah.
You know, nothing cool.
No sea monsters, no aliens, nothing. So,
yeah.
So yeah, eclipse. I mean, maybe the next one will be more intriguing. Probably not, but.
Well, I did see that Sunny from the View, that stupid, like, liberal ladies show,
right,
that has dumbed down the whole planet
in
its entirety, that she blamed not only the eclipse but also earthquakes on climate change.
Sure.
She thinks that climate change has everything to do with the eclipse and earthquakes.
Yeah, so, I think that climate change, changing how large bodies of mass rotate around the sun and each other is 100% the culprit. You know, we raise a few degrees here on Earth and the entire universal balance is adrift at this point. So I think that's sound logic worth exploring on a national televised program.
They pay that woman.
Yeah.
They pay her a lot of money.
I'm certain of it.
Yeah. And it is unreal that she gets to just sit there and say stuff like that on TV. But
you know, did she really make these? You're not pulling my leg. She actually said some shit like that. Awesome.
Even Whoopi Goldberg had to come in and go, I don't think that's how that works. And then Whoopi went on to explain a less egregious version of it, but still a dumb version of it.
Sure.
But Sonny's like, well, I may not know, but that's just what I read. And then they just let it go.
Wow.
They just let her. Yeah. So
that's not what I'm reading.
Sonny's,
but
I think Sonny's responsible for the New Jersey earthquake. That's just my take.
Great segue. And speaking of Trump's head in this as the center of the eclipse in the ad,
right?
Where was the epicenter of that earthquake?
From what I gather, because man, these East Coast people haven't had a ground shake pretty much ever. Most of them within their lifetimes, you know. And so it's a 4.5, which is a not even worth talking about
Yeah.
for us people who grew up in California. It's like, oh, 4.5,
Right.
whatever, But it was huge for them.
Sure.
They were terrified. But apparently the epicenter of it, and I'm going to need you to twist the cone on your tinfoil hat a
Here
little
we
bit.
go. Scrunching down, tightening the foil.
Was pretty much right on top of Trump's golf course
Nice.
in Jersey. So,
Yeah.
of course, there's speculation that the direct energy weapons or, CERN or the seismic dictator machine is launched directly at Trump's properties.
If they had blue AstroTurf for the Greens, I'd be willing to raise an eyebrow at that. It didn't work for Hawaii. Get the golf course. Nothing's off limits. Where's the tinfoil?
But yeah, that was an interesting story this week.
Yeah, I feel like when there's no news, it's just fun to invent news when you have stuff like that. Well, how do we spin national tragedy into, or a natural phenomena into?
Well, you got to justify Sonny's
politicized
somehow.
Yeah, I guess.
And everybody else's,
That's good eating. And way to go, Sonny. Content. So how about local news? What the fuck is going on over there? You were talking to me a little offline about some madness.
Speaking of epicenters,
yeah, please.
We have been on the national level of news lately in our tiny little corner of the earth. Coeur d'Alene, Idaho gets, if people talk about Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, the one thing from any other part of the country that they go, isn't that a place that had all those racist guys living up in that compound?
Yeah, the Richard Butler era. Yeah.
Right. And that's really the only notoriety that this area's ever had.
One other time, Oprah released it in a book that was like her top 100 favorite places on the planet to go visit or something like that. It's some theme like that, top 10, I don't know. It's very high on the list. Everyone was very excited when Oprah released that. And that was like early 2000s. So it was like, otherwise, yeah, it does not hit the news.
We get a lot of celebrity traffic out in Beauty Bay and Black Rock and stuff like that. So like
Hattie Duke Austin lived there.
She did, absolutely. I actually tattoo her ex-husband.
I think John Travolta's sister lives there as well, or is frequents there. Yeah.
Yeah, she actually goes to the gym where my wife would.
Well, there you go.
Yep. So quite a few actually. There's they all pop into town every once in a while, and there's the sighting, and then it hits the social media train, and everybody's like, "Ooh, I saw him."
Well, internet radio superstardom starts right here. One half of this podcast lives there too. So, I mean, it's a celebrity hotbed. It's turning out to be.
It really is. But yeah, in the last 5 years or so since the COVID era, we have hit the national spotlight a couple of times.
Yeah.
That with the checklist being basically the Gun to Lane event, and then we had a Patriot Front event. We also had a school board thing that hit CNN with, they called my
crazy
wife and
parents,
my mother-in-law, terrorists, right?
Domestic even.
Yep. And then so there was we've hit the national news numerous times because of that. But in the last month, we've had a few, and I touched on one of them last week, which was the University of Utah women's basketball team coming to town.
Yes.
Remember? And we, just to highlight it real quick, they went to dinner. They were staying in Coeur d'Alene instead of Spokane. They weren't happy about it. They thought they should be closer to the
tournament event. Yeah.
The tournament event, right? And so they went to dinner at a local restaurant called Crafted, which is at the kind of the top of 7th Street or something in Coeur d'Alene.
Oh, so we found out where they went. It was Crafted.
Yes, it was Crafted. So
got it.
And they when they walked up there, they were, and I'm briefing this because they were, in quotations, harassed on the
Mm-hmm.
way there. Spent 2 hours at the restaurant, and there was 100 of them, and then they came back and were harassed again by multiple vehicles this time, all the way down to the resort, which is at the base down by the lake, which is about a 4 or 5 block kind of stretch. Nothing
Mm-hmm.
huge. Um, but since then, a bunch of video has been released. The guy who, like, none of them complained. Not one person filed a complaint on the team or anything. And it wasn't until they won twice, and then on the last one they lost. In the press conference, the coach brought up this incident. She didn't bring it up after the 2 wins, but they lost because they were upset after the third game. So all of a sudden now, it's like,
okay.
What?
Let me unpack this. So the narrative was they lost because they were harassed, and that's what the whole big press conference was about. They won 2 games and then lost a third, and the reason for the loss after the 2 wins was due to the residual heartache and harassment fallout.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in fact, the incident happened. They played the 2 games that they won after the incident.
Sure.
And then nothing was said as long as they're winning. But the minute that they lost that third one, that was the elimination one.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden, the narrative shifts into, well, the reason we lost is because the girls were upset of this incident that happened half a week ago that we never brought up until just now.
Sure.
So, however, the demand, because there was one guy who was responsible for the complaint and called 911 and then also did the police report, and we got all of the video. We got the cam from him and all that, like with the police camera, and the phone call recording and all of that. First of all, the guy was drunk, without a doubt. Second of all, he was the guy financing it and was pissed that he had to pay for the resort and not close to the event. So the NCAA basketball event, right? So, and he had been complaining about that prior in social media posts. And so he was super mad and went off talking about the history of Coeur d'Alene and how he knows it's a racist place because he's from Seattle.
Sure.
So of course, he has this perspective of this. And goes on to make all these claims that, it was a white lifted truck with a Confederate flag hanging off the back, and they were screaming the N-word at the girls. And then the second round, when they left, which the video showing them going into Crafted and coming out of Crafted, no one's upset. No one, they're laughing, they're talking to each other. No one's upset. No one just had a
Why are they being
incident.
Filmed going to and from dinner? Like, who's doing the filming?
Oh, it's security cameras from the
Okay.
restaurants. And
I'm like,
so
this sounds staged. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
They've been tapping into all of the cameras along the strip down there from all the businesses. So the security footage shows that they were fine. No one was like, looking worried or upset. And when they left, they weren't like looking around.
Nary a pearl was clutched this evening. Got it.
Exactly. So then, what ends up happening is they start getting, they're trying to get a hold of the team. The team is stonewalling. The girls aren't talking, nothing. None of the girls posted anything about it from the day of the event on any of their social media.
Right.
And I personally checked just to make sure. And I went because I looked up their roster and I was like, so what's like, is it just like a whole bunch of just, Amazonian black girls that are, nope, they got 3. They have 11 white girls. They have 3 black girls on the whole team and 1 black coach. So out of 100 people, there were 4 people that were black. We've never had an issue like that around here. And in fact, our local junior college, North Idaho College, they have 2 black girls on their female team and 11 black guys on their men's team. 11 of them. which we tattoo most of those guys. In fact, like 4 days ago, one of them came in to get another tattoo. Said they never have those problems. They never bring it up. Every time they're in there for hours, they never say, "Yeah, this place sucks. We get yelled at a lot." Not once. And so we asked him. He goes, "Yeah, it's silly. We don't get it because that never happens to us around here." I was like, "Okay."
So this was Utah, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Of the 25 teams in the tournament, they placed 22nd.
Yeah.
So I don't think they were like number one in the country. This is a news story that's being built around a narrative of Coeur d'Alene.
Right. Exactly.
Not the school, not the girls, not the action.
Well,
okay.
The school, if you look into it, actually, University of Utah has had a history of 2 or 3 hoaxes such as this, like being screamed at from the bleachers in the games. Turned out it wasn't true. Like, this has happened a lot in their history. So when things don't go their way, they cry foul in a lying fashion.
Yeah.
So this is part of this. So this guy files this, says these trucks go by, right? And on the second time that they're walking down the street from the restaurant, there's multiple trucks. And he said 2, maybe 3 souped up trucks. One of them being white with a big Confederate flag on it, revving their engines, racing up and down. Which, if anybody's been on Sherman, you know that their lights don't allow you to race up and down. You can rev your engines, absolutely, but you're not. But that happens all the time with just dumb kids cruising the strip. It had nothing to do with these people. And so they searched and searched. There was a $10,000 reward put up to see if we could find it from one of our friends. Because we're like, yeah, we're getting blamed for this as the Republican Party, saying that we've invited this here. Well, we'll put up the money and we'll absolutely help you. Even though it's a First Amendment violation, because even if they said dirty, gross, ugly words that I would not condone, it's still not illegal. There's nothing illegal about it.
Right.
And so they would really have to stretch to create a crime that happened within this. Sure, it's ugly. Sure, it's dirty. And no, we don't want that kind of behavior here. However, it's not a crime.
Right.
And so, but our human...
It makes you a piece of shit human, but it's not criminal activity.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
But our Human Rights Task Force, which is run by Christy Wood here, or she's the vice president. She used to be the president. And then also our left-leaning city councilman, mayor, and everybody involved, including the chief of police that held the original press conference of nothing. We have no evidence. We have no one claiming anything. Yet a crime was committed, and we're going to get to it. That press conference. They're the ones behind all of this. They saw what happened, or they got this guy who was mad, made a drunk claim because he's pissed about it and thought he could get a better hotel out of it. Then what ends up happening is they catch wind of the police report, because Christy Wood she used to be on the Coeur d'Alene Police Department as a sergeant. She's a big wig and is friends with Lee White, the chief. So this comes across her desk, which she keeps tabs on, and goes, ooh, we can use this to kind of paint a narrative here.
Yep.
We don't really even need evidence. Basically, we just need to pitch the story and get everybody riled up about it. So people started online for the last 2 weeks have been going, so where's the evidence? It's been 2 weeks, and you guys, like, the FBI is involved and all of the... Why is the FBI even involved? All of this stuff starts happening, right?
Yeah.
They come up with nothing, and then this guy goes to... And I'd never seen this guy before, but he's an ex-military guy. Goes to the city council meeting, and in public comment, lets them have it. The mayor and Christy Wood and all these people about this, what's going on, and how dare they. propagate this without any evidence
Right.
and paint an entire community the way that they, as a racist hillbilly, because the guy called us a bunch of white trash hillbilly
Of course.
rednecks.
Yeah.
And which apparently that's not a hate crime.
Yeah. Never mind.
But the
That's
other one
that's
is.
the people that help put you in the office that you're in. But hey,
Right.
you know.
So this guy just let them have it and called them out. The very next day, the police decide to issue out their evidence, which is we finally got pictures of the perpetrators. We have video. We're not going to release the video or the audio, but the audio for sure says the N-word a
Right.
bunch in it.
Sure.
And so they put out the pictures of the stills of the video. And it is literally the most Bigfoot blurry nonsense you've ever seen. It is a silver sedan and it is blurry. I mean, you can look up the pictures right now. It's crazy. But like there's two pictures and you can't even tell what kind of maker model car it is. You can tell it's silver. Can't see who's in it. Can't see the license plates. Can't see anything. And everyone's like, wait, we thought it was a white truck. And they're
Right.
like,
What happened to the Confederate
now
flag and all the white
right.
lifted trucks?
Now
and
you're
stuff?
just denying evidence, is what they're now trying to tell us. Nope, now you're moving the goalpost. And we're like, we're moving the goalpost.
What?
You're moving. And they're like, nope, this is the car. This is the car. And we're like, there's not even timestamps on the pictures or the video. You guys erased the timestamps. This could have been last year for all we knew. You went searching through camera footage just to find something with an N-word screaming out of the car.
Right.
My guess is that it was rap music coming out of this beat up sedan. You can see it's dented in, but like, so this is the evidence. This is the evidence that you provided. And so everyone started calling him out on that. And
I would have asked them to go back, you know, put on their thinking caps, try a little harder, try to find a way to not only tie racism to this, but global warming. See if Sonny can give him a spot on the morning show. Like,
great. Yeah.
Fucking what? So this is likely video from who knows when that they just scrubbed up and oh, let's find matching audio for this.
Well,
and it has absolutely
the pressure was really on.
Sure.
The public outcry was huge here. Like, what are you doing? Like, there's no evidence, and you guys are claiming a crime and then painting our whole community.
Right. The footage is not of 7th Street. Instead, it's like of a Costco parking lot.
Right.
Wow, dude.
But it's
okay, so the community's furious, right? And rightfully furious. So now
so
what?
They had to scramble and put something out. There's been silence since then.
Oh boy.
Since then they're like, this is the narrative we're going with, and then just backed away like Homer Simpson into the bush.
Hey man, serve and protect.
Right. And so that's basically where it's stopped. Yeah. Nobody else has come forward. They've provided no more evidence. They have not released the audio, and they're like, well, it's under investigation. We can't actually. I was like,
right.
You can't? Because I happen to recall many other instances where when they're looking for someone that isn't a murder or anything, that they'll put out as much as they can.
Yeah, it's very plot convenient when you can unseal an open investigation for, you know, your narrative and then reseal it up because it's under investigation. We see this in Congress daily. You know, the thing that I find super interesting that's also a fair rebuttal is, well, and by the way, we the people did not start this shit show with a press conference.
Yeah.
Right. So like how would we not want to follow up with this, even if it's for, you know, keeping our own accountable or like conceding in some way or finding a, you know, a punctuation mark for this it's bananas. So I would keep pressing them. They're not going to say anything. They will never say anything. It's like, oh, hand was caught in the cookie jar. I guess we'll just seal it up because it's an ongoing investigation forever. But who can get a hold of the reports? Are there reports?
Well, we can, here's the thing. They can be FOIA'd.
Yeah.
And that is in the works.
Good.
So, and if they deny the FOIAs for investigative purposes, that it's a current investigation that would supersede a FOIA,
right?
Then we carry it up the ladder, and then we take it to the state attorney general, which is not a problem for us.
I
So
I think that should be scheduled at this point.
yeah, I think so too. When the entire community in an entire county is being lambasted as um, at the
Something you're
very
not.
least something that we're not,
Right.
you know, and
Like
uh,
a grim town full of thugs that are wrapped in this, you know,
chasing down basketball players.
deep deep white supremacist narrative. Like, it's bullshit. Yeah,
Absolute
you have
bullshit.
every right to be furious.
So yeah, but that's basically where we're at now.
Mm-hmm.
They have not capped anything off, and it's kind of went dormant. And I think it's going to take a back seat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we'll let it die. We're going to keep going after it. But I think as the general consensus of the surrounding community, because they tend to have a short term memory. But we had another incident yesterday that
It'll be yesterday's news faster than our withdrawal from Afghanistan that no one talks about.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, this is interesting what you're about to get into. Please go ahead.
Yeah, but so this is the new topic that came up as of yesterday. We get everybody without, all of a sudden we all see within some of our social media news organizations that we all kind of collectively watch, an actual posting about a big arrest that happened and that the FBI are involved and that it was a huge arrest because they arrested and squashed a plan that they were ahead of, the feds, of a 18-year-old kid who'd been working for ISIS and was going to be giving them or had been giving ISIS information and materials,
mm-hmm.
and that he was planning on doing at the end of Ramadan, end up doing a mass shooting, suicide shooting at one of our local churches.
Mm-hmm.
And
this was on USA Today, and a bunch of news organizations are aggregating this between 23 hours ago and 6 hours ago, and reports are still coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And the kid's name was Alexander Mercutio, something like that. Mercutio. Yeah,
Mercurio, I think. Mercurio, Mercurio. Mercurio. Yeah, I think so.
18-year-old kid.
Dude, 5 out of 4 kids are bad with fractions. You know what I mean? So,
right.
Sorry if we fucked up your last name, would-be terrorist guy.
I don't think he's gonna hear this.
Try not to take it personal.
Yeah, please don't come after me. No, 18-year-old kid, local kid, not somebody who's recently moved here. He'd gone to school here.
Perspective, your kid's age.
Yeah, my kid's age. Yeah. So, and under the radar, like nobody'd heard about this kid. In fact, I don't think I know anybody who knows this kid. So, but he grew up here, went to Coeur d'Alene High School. I guess was not super popular, but also not a complete outcast of any kind. But
average kid,
right? And so I actually had an opportunity to. I was on the phone with our local Sheriff Norris today, and he gave me some information. He can only say so much because it's an ongoing investigation that isn't his. He's just aiding it because it's within his county. And but he did say that because everyone's kind of thinking, is this a Gretchen Whitmer kind of situation where they led this kid down a trail just to create the ghost or create the monster in North Idaho again, that there's terrorism going on here, right? And to stir up fear, and which is well within the realm of possibility. But he said that in this particular case that he's no fan of the feds. He thinks that they are absolutely capable of doing those type of setup jam jobs, and that they do them all the time. And he has friends that are currently in jail because of that. However, he said in this particular case, he's looked into it. This is not that.
Mm.
This is a kid who apparently during really wanted to go to school, and during COVID was not allowed to go. And I've got only some loose details on this. I don't really know much of the backstory, but he was kept at home, isolated, and was not allowed to go to school. And then after COVID, like was homeschooling for a while, but it did not. He ended up going to high school, but there was some damage done. And during the time frame when he wasn't going, he really wanted to go to church, and apparently his parents wouldn't let him go to church during that time frame. So he was forced into some online chat rooms to keep himself company, and apparently fell into some dark areas of the internet and met up in some dark chat rooms that kind of led him into kind of some radicalization, weirdly in Islam of all places in North Idaho. There's not a whole lot of support for that in this area. So
I was gonna say I got a feeling there's much more to this that will probably come out because a few things. One, it's rare at that age to want to be pulled, like wanting to belong is quite common, right? But being pulled towards some sort of ideological oversight is rare. Finding support for that type of behavior outside of a dark place on the internet, also rare, extremely rare in the area that you live in. And how does one go from wanting to attend church in the short, whatever, year and a half to wanting to then, kill a bunch of people in one like that?
Yeah, there's some puzzle pieces missing for
sure. Big gaps yeah. Okay.
It being a national story, I'll be able to hopefully. Well, it's just happened yesterday, so I'll be.
Yeah, you're talking to the guy that's working for the folks investigating it at least, so that's more information than I know. But Jesus, and this was Saturday. He was picked up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, and and ISIS of all places, but. Here's the thing, too. On a national level, everybody was being warned that during the eclipse and during all of the things that were going on. I don't think it was Saturday, actually, because today being Tuesday. I think it was Sunday.
They said picked up attack churches in support of ISIS, arrested Saturday.
Okay. So,
yeah.
Man, time's flying.
That comes from the United States Department of Justice.gov, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's making rounds.
It is making rounds. But there was a big warning that went out last week saying that there was going to be lone wolf and ISIS attacks within the United States, and for everyone to be on high alert for that. And, you've got the tinfoil hats yelling, hey, this might just be them kind of fear mongering and gearing up for stuff. But I don't know. In this particular case, I think we need to see more of the story before we can pass any judgment, which is really odd. Most of the time, my groups tend to jump to conclusions pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Admittedly, they tend to, suss out all the information and then go, that's what's actually happening. And then, a good 30% of the time they're wrong. But maybe a little higher than that. But in this particular case, I noticed a collective pause where they did not.
Yeah.
And I think it goes into the face of the fact that we are very, justifiably paranoid about buses showing up in our area and such as those type of things. But
to hit the radar for the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force,
right?
This kid had to have been noodling around flagrantly in some watch-listed chat rooms on the dark corners of the internet, because you don't just, oh, I heard a rumor, and then the local sheriff told the deputy who talked to the police chief who thought I better phone the FBI. This is not what happened, according to some early reports anyway. So
yeah. So for sure, I think that this warrants some hesitation and some to sit back and watch to see the details unfold before any confident appraisals are made at all.
Yeah.
So
no, scary stuff though.
Yeah,
I mean, in this case, if those actions were actually carried out, I mean,
I would be more concerned, like, for the church that he did select, because he's not selecting my church. I actually brought that. I was like, was it candlelight? And he goes, no, it wasn't candlelight. I was like, I didn't think so. There's a couple of churches around here that have more firearms in them every service than most gun stores.
Yeah.
So, like, ours being one of them, like, I'm never not carrying. And so, like, the 4 services that we have at the church I go to, I would imagine that there's an estimate of 50 people carrying per service.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even touch the highly trained and skilled security team that we have on at all times. And there's at least half a dozen of them every service.
And we'll have to see if some more information comes out on this one too, like what the murder suicide plot was, because if it was just to turn the gun on oneself, okay. If it was something like a vest or you know what I mean, like there's really no amount of training that can
do a vest
prevent you from harm in such a way. That said, I'm trying to be careful with what I say on YouTube, not that I'm scared to say anything. But yeah, that's sad. Yeah. Like, and at least they caught the kid. We'll see how it plays out. Jesus.
Yeah.
God, what a
so we've had an interesting
month
here.
What a lightning few weeks you've had up there, eh?
Yeah. Our chat threads are pretty lively these days.
I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Well, I hope I don't know what I hope. I hope that we get more information about this and that people don't take their foot off the gas pedal with this situation with the press release, the story we just covered before this too. Like, I really hope the Attorney General gets to take a look at this and say, provide an answer.
Right.
Like that kind of stuff is it builds sentiment, because people read headlines and then get them tattooed on their forehead. Like, that's just the news. So
we actually had another gentleman, a journalist, in the loosest sense of the word, because I'm not real fond of the guy, but he did do a good job by going down the strip, down Sherman, and literally went business to business and pointed at all of the cameras that are pointing in the direction of all. It was like this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And he spent a 30-minute video walking down going, none of these cameras caught the white truck with the big flag or anybody screaming the N-word. The only video we got was of this blurry silver sedan with a dent in it and no audio.
And no audio.
Like, So, what is happening here? Every one of these cameras should have picked up something. Every one of them. And none of them did. And the girls aren't talking. The school's not talking. No one's talking. Like, nothing. And so, and not to mention, none of the girls, the 100 girls that are between the ages of 18 and 22, had their phones out.
Right. Yeah. Nothing hit social media. And no one's reachable for comment. No information whatsoever. And to layer it on, to build onto the narrative, they only got upset after round 2 of the tournament when they lost. Like,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I don't know. More's got to come out.
Yeah. Well, I'll keep you guys updated if we find anything else out, but we're definitely going to continue digging. So,
yeah. All right. So we've had conversations in our circles almost at the same time around this convention of states. And I'm glad you brought this up. This hit we should talk about this board. And I'm very curious to talk about this. The Convention of States is Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution, And it's a provision that allows issues to be addressed outside of the federal government's purview by a congressional appointment. So, unpacking that, Congress has to call a convention with a topic, and then each of the states, all of the states, have to send a representative, and then a 2/3 majority allows for the modification or an amendment to be changed in the U.S. Constitution. We've had 27 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, 0 of which have ever been produced this way. However, it is a possibility. So, this is what Convention of States is. So, what would be the premise of the Convention of States? What would be the premise for Congress calling a convention where the states would need to go in and talk about some stuff? Because I think that's where I'm going to have a lot more to unpack. So I'll pass it to you. A, did I get that loosely right? And B,
correct.
What would be the reason for a Convention of States?
Well, I do believe that.
What are we amending?
38 states actually have to agree to it for it to push through. So
50 states, 38 would have to agree.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but what typically the premise of it is, and why people explore the idea is because they feel that our current system isn't working properly, that it's broken, that it doesn't fit a modern context, or that it is that there are things that could be at least tweaked or modified to service the people better. Now, all of that is predicated on the concept of what you think better is. And so and oftentimes that there is a huge divide with, everyone going, yeah, we should all get together and talk about these rules and talk about maybe doing some amendments. And so that is typically what it is people thinking that the system is broken, that it needs rendering, it needs modification, or it needs to be shored up in certain areas or opened up in others. And it typically comes from a sense of like unrest amongst the population when things are getting rowdy in the wildlands. And but oftentimes I think a lot of it is based around the judicial system and Congress.
Yeah.
And so and it is a hot topic when it's married to the concept of it's either this or a national divorce. Either we go in there, we fix it.
There we go. So I'm going to ask some difficult questions now. Cool. Right.
I'm good.
Because that's what I was kind of hoping this was going to drive toward. Because I'm like, I've heard this in my circles under a different premise, but the result being the same. So if 50 states got to send a homie and then 38 homies need to agree, first of all, and I've been very public about this, I personally am generally not in favor of noodling around with the Constitution at all. Just as a static, I come at this very risk averse. Right. So doesn't this open the window to rewriting the entire Constitution? And the answer unequivocally, and I can say this with impunity, is yes, it does. It absolutely does. And while the late Supreme Court justice that did speak about this when I was looking this up, Antonin Scalia, he acknowledged the risk, but then noted, well, it's minimal and reasonable one. And to ratify any of the proposals, you'd need that 2/3 majority. Agree. So difficult question time. Like, what issues in society have been handled under the banner of minimal and reasonable in the last 10 years? And say this proceeds, we now have a precedent born of this. Do you think it will stop here, or will this be a listless trickle of constitutional amendments until the day we die that pour in over and over and over again from disgruntled constituents? And remember, you don't even need to pass the bar now in places like Washington State to become a person who practices law. So how will the extreme ideology-driven places interpret the Constitution going forward as time progresses? And who will they send as a delegate to vote on the state's behalf or propose a net new item? So I'll put it this way, right? The good and the bad for me. The good.
Okay.
term limits in federal government employment positions. I'm shooting from the hip.
Typically what everybody starts off with is the term limits thing. They all think that there's no way to do this unless we do a convention of states, and then we can put in term limits.
Tax limits.
Well, go ahead.
Tax limits number 2. Yep. Number 3, proposing that Congress cannot exempt itself from the laws with which it passes, which it routinely does. Whistleblower protections, subpoenas for health and safety probes, keeping workplace records, prosecution for retaliating against employees, Freedom of Information Act that they're exempt from.
Stock market.
Stock market trading. Lots and lots and lots and lots of good could come from this action. Now the bad.
Right.
And I put, my note is, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Literally any equity provision in the workplace per state versus competency in open competition for employment in America. Literally any use of the word sanctuary for a condition of state base of any kind, promoting increased American division predicated on personal ideology.
I will put a caveat to that one. Outside of Second Amendment sanctuary states, I would absolutely be okay.
I think the Second Amendment's fine how it is, and we don't need to sanctuary shit. But that's probably where we disagree. Energy usage amendments. Like, this is coming. Criminal prosecution amendments, decriminalization. Constitution identifies 3 federal crimes on paper, to my knowledge. Piracy, counterfeiting, and treason.
Yep.
To my knowledge. For now. All that to say, I don't know, Article 5's in the Constitution for a reason.
It is, yeah.
This is a hard one to answer. Like, I know I just fucking poured I shot the fire hose, but like, I'm just typing away, like, and then this, no, fuck that. And then this, nope. Like,
yeah. I think that your negative list is pretty tame in comparison to what it actually will be.
Because consider the representative that would be proposing constitutional amendments.
Well, yeah, because you're making that list. You're making that list. You cannot be in the mind of the people that so the things that you can't even fathom because you're a good dude. These people are going to be throwing things that you didn't even think about at this thing.
The validation of your sexual choice at birth, or at some unknown age. Like, that's a rabbit hole we could tumble down for hours. Absolutely. But the point being, like, this is awesome because it gives the power to the states, which is much closer to the people than the federal government.
Paper, it looks great.
That said, this is going to kick the door open on a bunch of shit that we will never, ever come up for air from for the rest of time, in my opinion. I don't know. We've never done it before, so I don't know.
I say pretty often, actually, when this is brought up, but I was like, if you think that you're going to go into this thing and come out with more rights, and not less rights, you're out of your mind.
Yep.
And the reason being is that I can't think of 38 people or 50 people in my life that I would trust
that agree on anything.
That would agree on anything. Like, we do not live in a day and an age where we are walking with moral giants.
Correct.
There was a time frame that there was a structured morality to people and what governed and steered their lives.
Right.
And we built this country off of that. So when that particular, clause was put in there, they were kind of probably thinking that the escalation of human thought was going up, even though they were all kind of biblically based dudes who kind of knew that wasn't the case, but they were in the Enlightenment period. So they were a little bamboozled by the idea of self-flagellation. They were amazing men.
It does seem like at least one or two of them thought the government could get as big and as in debt as it is today if left unchecked. And to that end, they put it in there for a reason. So
I agree, and I think that what they wanted was a carve out for when government got too big, that good men could come in and take the reins. The problem is nowadays I don't think we have enough good men.
Again, what is minimal and reasonable risk versus return? Okay, like Chief the justice said that before he died or whatever, when last time this was approached in a quote, and I was like,
2/3.
Times have changed, son, since that. Like, groupthink is much different now than when you mentioned that a decade and a half
special
ago.
interests
Yeah,
and all the special interest
correct.
groups and the lobbyists and every one of them being blackmailed and tied into some type of financial scandal. Like even the good men are compromised. To
Yeah.
find 2/3 of the people who are good for us.
Well, right,
in
to
that
say
body of
nothing
humans,
of like, how do you
ain't gonna happen.
how do you nominate who represents your state in this convention call?
Yeah.
Like who gets that mantle? That's something I truly don't understand. Is it the governor? Fuck, I hope not. Like who?
I hope not.
Well, you know what I mean? Like who's this
Yeah.
magic?
Because the
Clark
delegation is
Kent
going to
that
be
just
either one of our U.S. senators, which I don't trust any of our Idaho senators. It's like Fulcher's okay, but he's kind of bendy when it comes to certain things.
Yeah, it's the senators that are going to vote on behalf of the state for the first item, which is likely to be term limits in federal employment positions. So like,
right, yeah. Okay. I don't want my job to last.
You're right. I should throw away all of my special interest money. Like, come on. So I would love an answer to that, because I even went to the website where everyone's like, sign here for this petition and blah, blah, blah. Like PragerU's got some stuff on it and this article and everywhere. And I'm like, right.
Friends who actually went and did we have a local guy, and I love Joe Alfieri is one of our state reps. And he actually went and did the mock one, in DC. They had a big one last year, and just to kind of test trial it. And he's a full advocate for it, but I could not I disagree with him vehemently on this, because I think he has more of kind of the boomer lens. He's an older guy who thinks that there's still good in the world, and I am of the Gen X variety where we're like, there hasn't been good in the world for a while and it's just getting worse. And I don't think that we have the moral fiber to put together an ace team that's going to get us more rights at the end of it. It's going to get us a 2/3 majority and keep all the bad stuff from sliding in. No, it's just not possible.
I just watched
at one point in time in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, we might have still had a chance.
That was my stab at society with the minimal and reasonable. I'm like, fuck, they don't know what that means. Nobody does.
No.
But I just watched a documentary called The Anti-Social Network, and it was about 4chan and how they've influenced from a website all of this crazy bullshit. It's fun watch. But that was swimming around in my head as I'm typing these notes, nah, this is not going to work the way on paper they would want it to, should this be enacted in some case.
I think it's romanticism. I think it's romantic. And I think that at one point in time, we had probably the capability of gathering enough men to shore up the good things of the Constitution. But at this point, I think just abiding by it would be nice.
I think
would be
I and I'm sorry I keep interrupting. I just have these fragmented thoughts that are going on. I think that in doing this in opposition to fracturing the United States as an alternative, like divorcing up the states and them banding together, is tacitly accomplishing the exact same goal. On a long enough timeline, I think ideology is what's going to parse how people interpret and then vote to amend the Constitution until it is as convoluted as most state laws are today, by the way, not annexing the federal part of this conversation for a moment. I think it's going to continue to divide and fracture. So based on where we're at now, that's me being a pessimist and a cynic, and I get it. But to me, that's the reality that I live in. I'm not.
Human nature is not one to place bets on.
Yeah. So, and I didn't know what your take was on this when you brought it up, but I'm like, yes, I want to talk about this. But I'm like, I don't think he's going to like my answer.
On purpose.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to like my answer. It's funny to me. We landed kind of on the exact same thing. So I'm like, yeah, there's good, but the bad is widening as I'm typing it out. And I'm like, fuck, I don't know about this. So
no, I've been an advocate against it for a while now, because it does pop up in our circles quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because there are people who still hold out hope, and it's not that I'm hopeless. It's that I recognize human nature, and I recognize it on a level that a lot of people don't. And I think that it's preposterous to put a bet in that arena at this point in time. We need to shore up first, and then we can go in. You know, like I think that there's a lot of work to do before we can even attempt that.
And that's
not off the table.
That's just a nutty precedent to set, having it done through the states in such a way. And depending on how much heartburn there is to get something done, even if it's innocuous or additive, like it doesn't even change something.
Say that if it does get done, one of the things that you should do is go in there and say, here's an amendment. You can't do a convention of states for 25 years.
Right.
Every 25 years, we can reconvene.
Mm-hmm.
Every generational pass, then we can reconvene.
Not a bad idea.
But that would be a caveat that I would put in there if they push forward with it, which I highly doubt that we're going to get that far.
The problem is that Congress doesn't have the same limitations, so it would have to be turnabout as fair play. Like, Congress would also not be able to nominate constitutional amendments of any kind at the federal level, agnostic of the Convention of States alternative, as they have done 27 times before now, for also 25 years. You know, like and I don't think that's me being a fuddy-duddy or slowing progress. I think it's tempering insanity. That's what I think it is. Because the government has run so far out of bounds with, I mean, what is the national debt? 28 trillion? Where are we at? Let's look.
I think it's more than that.
What's the national debt today? See if they have a ticker. 34 trillion. I was close.
Yeah, I thought so.
$34 trillion. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's too much, for sure.
Almost as much as we make on this podcast. Almost.
Well,
you know,
we get by.
I'm with you, man. Like, not to make light of it. So how is your argument received when your circles bring up Convention of States, and they start to kind of pop up on the soapbox about how this is a, romantic, rose-colored, like, oh, we could just, save America this way, and then you kind of shit on their Cheerios a little bit, like
which I am known to do, and I am known as somebody who enjoys it.
I talk to you quite a bit. I know the approach. No, like how is that received then generally?
Not well. And what they do is they sidestep it. They just they don't want to believe that we're in the state that we're in.
Yeah.
But I mean, literally as of today or tomorrow, I think that new A24 film Civil War is coming out for some.
Yeah, I mentioned my distaste for seeing that preview. I was like,
but that's coming out this week. It's on the verge of that, and I don't want that. I'm not advocating for that. I don't want that even in the slightest. However, if we're teetering on that and then people are still romanticizing about this Convention of States, they cannot coexist.
Correct.
Those two countries that are in those two situations are not the same country. They cannot coexist. You have people who want a national divorce, and there's a lot of them. It's not a small faction. They're fantasizing and romanticizing civil war.
Yep.
And we are at the precipice of that. Do you think that opening up the floodgates of our Constitution and allowing for a bunch of people to get their fingers in that pie, that at this point in history would be the appropriate time for humankind, for Americans to be on their best behavior and have your best interest in mind? Because I don't want those.
I would say the only members of our species that would love to see that for America are not allied countries of America.
Correct.
Yep.
To be in a compromised state where we don't know what rules we're abiding by, in the middle of probably some of the most contentious strife this country's ever seen.
Let's crack open the founding rule book right in the middle of all this discontent and just start noodling with stuff. Sounds like a great idea. The architecture of American democracy, we'll just start noodling around with that. I had to take a stab at Washington, but dead serious. Like, you don't have to pass the bar in Washington State to be a lawyer.
Nope.
You just have to go through an apprenticeship for X number of hours.
Yep.
Holy shit. That's not a good precedent to set going forward.
Washington's going to get wild.
I've
already seen reels of dudes that are like, "Oh, what? I can be a lawyer now?"
Yeah.
Just off. Yeah, and yeah.
Yeah, and how do you vet that? Like, if you need to be represented in something, be like, did you pass the bar? Okay, I don't want to work with you. Did you pass the bar? Okay, I don't want to work with you either.
Wait till they start making discrimination laws based off that. Like, you can't discriminate against because I didn't.
Seconds after that was enacted, they started that. They started trying that seconds after that was enacted.
Oh,
and that was one of the things I think I listed in the bad.
I
did, yeah. Equity provisions and yeah.
You get a black trans lawyer who is pitching for your case, and you go, "Well, did you pass the bar?" And they go, "Well, no, I didn't have to." And then you go, "Well, I want somebody who wants to pass the bar." And then that person then sues you for discrimination.
Defamation.
Right. So,
you were threatening.
Good luck. Good luck, Washington. Good luck with that. That was a beautiful move on your part.
It's good stuff.
Setting up the detonators.
My God, man. So no convention of states for me.
Nor I. So I think we actually not oddly, but like we did not discuss it. I brought it up.
No, because
the most vague of ways.
And I was like, I don't know if he's gonna shit on this or not, but I'm gonna go for it because like looking at the differentiation, I see the divide growing and growing and growing on a bunch of different factors. You know, the amount of loopholes that this was creating. Yeah, that's interesting.
I just to cap it off, I don't think if we were to have a convention of states this month, or even in the next 6 months, doesn't really matter. I don't think that we're coming out of it with more rights than less rights.
I would agree with you there. And like for devil's advocacy, you know, ending my rant, it was like all that to say it's still in the Constitution. It's there for a good reason. I still believe in that, but the application of Article 5 in modern society is the death of American freedom, in my opinion.
Correct. I would agree. Yep.
So.
Whew. All right.
Yeah. I'm glad that came out too. I was like, I wonder if we're going to talk about this because it did cross my mind a couple months ago where I was like, I want to actually, because that was one of the last times I had this conversation. But yeah, good times, chat. I see you lurking.
Who's lurking in the chat?
I don't know. Just eyeballs. That's all I can see.
Cool.
So
say hi in the chat. You guys. Don't just sit there and watch us.
Reach out. Don't be afraid. We're not gonna invoke Article 5.
Back. Yeah.
So we both watched a Netflix miniseries called A Three-Body Problem. Lead us. Go. How did this...
Three-body problem.
Yeah.
So I'm a big sci-fi nut. And I like intellectual sci-fi.
Same.
I like guns and you know, goober sci-fi too. I like you know, gross and guns and brainless stuff. But I also really enjoy a good intellectual sci-fi. And apparently, this is a book by a Chinese author that actually won the Nebula Award or whatever for sci-fi, great sci-fi. And from what I gather, the book is like really, really, really dry in the sciencey part. He goes hard into the science in the book. Now, and people who have watched the show that are book purists, it's been kind of 50-50. Some of them were pleased with it because they cut out all the heavy duty stuff that wasn't really necessary.
Right, but it's not going to sell if there aren't enough ninjas and explosions and right.
Right, exactly. So, but other ones were kind of like really irritated that it strayed too far from the path of the book.
Sure.
As you get with any of the adaptation kind of series or movies. So, I went into it kind of blind. I didn't know any of this stuff. I just saw some actors like from Game of Thrones and stuff that I liked, and it looked like a quirky, weird, like sci-fi that I hadn't really seen before. I didn't see anything that was resembling anything else. And to its credit, that's true. It was very entertaining in that regard. It did hold up with this kind of, I would say pseudo-intellectual, if I'm being honest, sciencey portions. And the entertainment value was 2/3.
Yeah.
It was fun, and then it dropped off, and then it wasn't fun anymore. But
I gotta say, the opening scene in the first episode to kick the series off was a savage look at mob mentality, and I was like, okay, not where I thought this was gonna go, but like, I'm in now. Right. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, the revolution,
the trial,
revolution in communist China, and during that time frame. Yeah, and they kind of brushed over that a little too much, in my opinion. I wonder if it explored it more in the book.
I'd imagine it would.
And especially coming from somebody who's a Chinese writer.
Correct.
It was probably more heavy-handed in the book about the problems with communism, even though I don't know. It's hard to say because it's also coming from a kind of liberal scientist viewpoint, which they tend to view communism favorably until they're in it. And then they don't think about it anymore. Then it's far less appealing.
Yeah, everyone's a communist until they're actually under the Communist Party.
Right.
Funny how that works.
It starts off with this, obviously this young girl who has brilliant scientist parents that are her dad gets killed in front of an audience of cheering, young communists who are stomping out intellectualism. But it was blurry about the religion thing because honestly, the religion would have gotten him murdered before the science did. They didn't really care about that until later when they were just jealous of science, of intellectualism. So, but the religion was right out of the gate. Get rid of any of the religious stuff. So they touched on it a little bit because they had to. I felt forced, but
I do appreciate that in the scene where they asked him, do you believe that there's a God? And he thinks about it, and then he sticks to his guns and says, there's no evidence to support or deny that. I don't know.
Right.
And then it proceeds, and they're just like, all right, we got that out of the way. That's kind of how they felt like they shot it a little bit to me, but
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, and then it goes on to the storyline goes on to explore a group of college friends that are all like high level scientists in the physics realms. And some of them are more so than others. Some of them went into building companies, and other ones went into more of the heavy science stuff. And there's a lot about the hadron colliders and basically CERN, and the evidences that they're getting from it are contradicting what we know in our regular physical realm.
They knew the eclipse was coming. Yeah.
They did, yes. And then they start finding dead scientists that are all, physicists that are all connected to each other in one way or another.
Yeah.
And
they were among the community of our best and brightest is what they kept referring to them as. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then they start realizing that there is an entanglement of a background story mixed with secret operatives and alien tech that has implications of world collapsing, world ending concepts that they are being tested to find out how to figure out And so it puts you on this roller coaster with all these characters.
And the best they could come up with for the sci-fi portion of this was basic quantum entanglement for like the unseen, unknown listening device, the two-way listening device. You know, it's like,
Right.
come on, guys. Like, cool, you rooted it in something that is being explored, but you couldn't have come up with something with more lasers and ninjas than that. All right, whatever. But go on.
My general thought on the whole thing is that it was pretentious, that it was so up its own ass with it looking down its nose at anybody who wasn't a scientist, as if nobody else could possibly understand it the way that they could. And the actors and the characters conveyed that to each other and to the audience, like, well, they wouldn't understand, it's science.
Right.
You know, and that attitude was pervasive throughout the whole thing, from 1967 China all the way into modern age. And then the aliens were doing that to them. Well, you wouldn't get it because you're just scientists.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was in pockets of fun. There was a whole bunch of up its own assery. Like, it was absolutely.
I don't think Tenet took itself as serious as this miniseries, and that was pretty like, you know, like they want you to really dive into this movie to try and rethink it and watch it 100 times. So, you know, hey, good on them for that. But yeah, this felt very much like, you know, I'm living under the shadow of someone's nose that they're looking down at me from, you know, like.
Right. And then the other thing is that it had heavy overtones of Netflix's favorite game, which is predictive programming. Right. Of like, if things were to happen, say with Project Bluebeam or with aliens and stuff, the people floating away in a rapture type of scenario, it kind of gave the out for multiple different kind of concepts of end game scenarios that if they were to happen in real life, that we're getting predictive programming for. And it was through the video game that they play.
Yes. That was my biggest gripe about this whole thing, was exactly that. Like this is the gateway desensitized to could be this, could be that, but 100% it was, let's dole this out and watch them eat it up, you know?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it did not, it felt, for somebody who has kind of the eyes to see that kind of stuff.
Yes.
When you've been in the church your whole life, and you've been in scientific groups your whole life, and you've also been in the tinfoil hat communities your whole life, and all of these different arenas, you kind of have a better kind of scope for these things. And, you know, I can't watch anything without going, that's predictive programming. That is too. That is. And my poor kids have done the same thing. Like, we went and watched a movie, and at the end of the movie, my kid was just like, there was only 6 woke things in that movie, Dad. I was like, 6? You counted? Okay. And I was like, you're right. There were only 6. I saw those too.
That's the beauty of it. Like, wearing multiple hats when I was watching this, because you always come with your defenses up when they start to touch on these topics. Like, ooh, what kind of platter are you about to serve your audience with this answer? You know, and then watch them like try to write their way out of it. Right. But if you take the how did you put it? Up your own assery. If you take the up your own assery out a little bit,
that's the scientific.
I like it. I like it.
Colloquialism for it. So yeah.
All of the reasons that you don't pay attention to a movie, I enjoyed a lot. Like, I thought the effects were sick. I thought how they thought their way out of some interesting physics predicaments was kind of cool. And I love the cast. Like the dude that went off to open his own potato chip company. I've seen him in some stuff. He's cool. The lead investigator.
He's from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, the lead investigator. He's fucking awesome. He's Wong. Yep. And then also Jonathan Pryce, the main fanatic that's out on the boat. Couldn't have cast a better dude for that. Like, but all the other like main focal characters around it are just like CW hot guy, hot chick superstar type of people to me. I was just like, whatever. I've never seen these guys, but
I wasn't
Yeah.
connected to any of the other ones except for the ones that you brought into focus
Yeah,
there.
right.
Like,
Yeah. And then you change
all of the
hats
other
into
ones.
the like, what are you feeding me shit? And you're just like, ah. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Oh, the stars are gonna blink out. Can't wait for that to actually happen
Yeah.
here in real life. Like stuff like that. Like, they're working with technologies that are very close to like being able to do those kind of things right now, and that's just what we know about.
Right.
So but like this isn't too far fetched in the concepts of being able to create mass illusions and mass concepts like that, and for them to play it out as if it's like this technology that could not possibly be done by humankind.
Right.
And I'm like, that's absurd, because that's not true. Like, not even remotely. And it's almost just public record that Project Bluebeam exists at
Right.
this point. If you're not familiar with that, audience, just Google it. It is a real thing. I even have a T-shirt. But yeah, so it was obviously ham-fisted, and it's
Yeah.
like, we're going to be giving you all of these end game scenarios,
Yeah.
and you get to decide by the end of the series which one we're going to play on you in real life. But we're going to wrap it up in this like sleek, pretty, overly snotty, intellectual sci-fi show, so that people think that they're smart while they're watching it.
Right.
And it's literally just like wine
And
culture for TV.
It took itself pretty serious too.
It did.
Which I thought was kind of funny. Like, as a side note, just for content, I would love for you and I both to somehow get part-time jobs at Space Force, just so that we could be fired from Space Force and say that we've worked there, and just really laundry list out the rest of the tinfoil hat crunching that we'd be able to do from there. I think it'd be sick.
Yeah, I'm down. I have a shirt already. I have
Tangent over. Shirt. Yeah, I had one too. I had a hat, not a shirt. I had a hat somewhere, but I can't find it. But I'll try to look for that.
I'll wear my Space Force shirt next episode.
Yeah.
Next week. And then what the biggest disappointment was is that there was a lot of buildup, and then it like put the brakes on for the last 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And it became real drudgery to watch. It was real slow. It was more about the cancer guy and their relationships, and how the world was dealing with the big eye in the sky kind of concept, and that the world only had 400 years left or something to that. It was like everyone's all sad.
400 years before contact. One thing that I thought they snuck in there cleverly, and I believe this is why they belabored the cancer guy's story as long as they did, was to build up an empathy for somebody, to cater to the, oh God, you shouldn't do what you're about to do with this guy, to then also have enough logical overtures to desensitize why it would be cool to remove. I don't know if I want to spoil the whole thing. They did something extremely barbaric.
Agreed.
To then just be like, no, but greater good, and that is a trope that is very much rooted in reality in modern science. And I mean modern as far back as a couple hundred years. Like, lobotomies used to be prescribed. I'm not shitting you.
Right.
Like, so
for 25 years they were prescribed. Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So like, I kind of looked at that and went, I see what you did there. Not loving that, but but for all the reasons you don't think, all the reasons you don't think about the film or the series was fun, but the reasons you do was kind of like unnerving to some degree, because it's like, I know how you want me to feel about this at the end of this particular plot point, which you very much belabored for reasons I believe I've caught on to. Maybe I'm wrong, but like, that was fucked up, Yeah.
That's the correct assessment. That's exactly what they did. They pulled you along to make you feel a particular way, to desensitize you about a particular topic on purpose.
Yeah.
And that's the whole series was like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you down to like, there's this one quippy scene in the bar where they made some quip about like women being scientists, and well, duh, we're women, of course, kind of thing. And even in its subtlety, it was preachy through the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was intended to be. And um I I don't know. I gave it, if I was to score this thing off of just the first season,
Mm-hmm.
because I watched all of it and I enjoyed some of it.
Yeah.
I would probably give it a 4 megs.
Yeah, I landed on 3 megs. I was like,
Right.
I do want to know what happens next,
Yeah.
but I'm not that
Absolutely.
attached to it, and it's kind of like, meh, you know.
Yeah. If it comes out and I miss it, I'm not gonna. It's not gonna hurt my feelings. But if I have time in that particular time frame it comes out, then I'll be like, no, okay, I'm not watching anything else. I'll finish the story. There are 2 things that are coming out that I'm actually really kind of excited about, though.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is the what's the name of that? I reviewed it before. It was something Moon, Rebel Moon.
Rebel Moon, yeah.
Rebel Moon. The second one is coming out like this week.
Nice.
And I had no idea it was going to be that fast.
That was the Zack Snyder one we talked about a couple months ago, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I definitely want to check that out. They must have had that in the can, or pretty close. Yeah. I was going to mention another series I watched because I consumed a lot of content last week in lieu of our podcast. There's another series called American Conspiracy: The Octopus Murders.
Okay, I've seen that, but I haven't watched it.
It's wild.
Okay.
It's wild because you're mixing conspiracy with like 2/3 plausibility with eyewitnesses that are absolutely, or people that are involved, not just eyewitnesses, that are absolutely out of their fucking mind. You're like, I don't know if these are grifters. I don't know what's good, but you could see how like this one dude gets drawn in to pick up a story that, short and long of it, a story began years ago with a popular journalist, and then he winds up dead in a hotel room.
Okay.
And then somebody else is like, I'm going to investigate what's going on. And then he falls down the rabbit hole for 20 years, living out, like figuring out all this, connecting dots, talking to people that are like his inside guy that's now in prison. And was he wrong? Was he put there because the government's trying to cover it up? And how far back does this go? And how many like people are connected to it? And it's just this tapestry of like deep state, crazy fucking bonkersness that is a really fun watch. And I was just like, none of this scales. Like there's some stuff that you're like, there's no way this could be wrong. Like I can see the dots. And then some of it you're like, this is not how any of this works. Like, how did you go down this road? It's incredibly well done. And then it just kind of stops suddenly as well. But I'll leave it there. But yeah, I watched that. I watched this that we're talking about. And I watched that thing about 4chan, which was fun. The antisocial network. So I put down a lot of content this weekend between notes and other things.
Yeah, I'll put those on my list to watch too.
The moral of the story is I need to get off the couch a little bit on the weekends. But no, I thought it was fun. I thought it was super fun.
Yeah,
man.
That sounds good.
You guys, you knew we had to do it. We had to go back to The Gospel by Gen Z. I wasn't going to let you off the hook this week.
I was hoping.
Last week we did Christmas. Is that right?
No, we were right after the Christmas.
We did Wise Men last week. We're on chapter 6.
What is chapter 6?
Chapter 6 is called Presentation. So,
here we go.
Mary and Joseph held a holy baby shower for Jesus in Jerusalem, according to the divine mod rules. Now, a holy boomer named Simeon lived there, who always passed God's vibe check. Therefore, God promised him he would live long enough to see the one who comes in clutch. He pulled up to the top G's house that very day and saw the holy fam doing their holy baby shower. Suddenly, the Holy Spirit vibed within him, so he picked up baby Jesus and said, "Appreciate you, top G, for you've let me see the main character. He who will fulfill the divine dad lore, for he will come in clutch and will hand out the assignment. But we all will not understand. Thus he will manifest who are the real ones. Simeon told Mary she had to take the L with Jesus, but but he said, do it for the plot. Just then, Anna, the prophetess boomer, pulled up. She, who for decades was ride or die for the Divine G, and seeing the Divine Chile, she spilled the holy tea that he too will come in clutch. After the holy baby shower was over, the holy fam skirted back to Nazareth in Galilee. And Holy Bro went about his glow up quietly, always vibing with the Divine G.
Amen.
Wow.
Amen. Woo. You know, I'm learning so much.
You got to get one of these, dude. This is skirted back to Galilee. Skirt. I love it. I also learned some news. You were telling me offline. Friend of the podcast, Pastor Jason, also has a podcast coming up, and I feel it's necessary we plug it here a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It really, what it does is he hooks up with another gentleman that I know that is a brilliant mind and a funny guy, really, really smart guy. He's been in the Christian radio business for 35 plus years.
Nice.
And his name's John Leffler, and he did Steel on Steel Ministries and for years and years and years, but he primarily works within historical and world political arenas. He understands the far fetches of world politics and is an enormous encyclopedia of historical context, especially when it comes to politics.
Yeah.
He works primarily with a lot of missionary groups all over the world and keeping track on different Christian groups within Africa and Southeast Asia and the Middle East, and how they're being persecuted throughout the world, because that happens on an astronomical level that we as Americans are very shielded from, and we don't really recognize. We know, like, oh yeah, people do mission trips to Africa, to, all over the world, right? But the amount of slaughter and torture and rape and horrible, horrible things that are happening to Christians on a weekly level around the world, John has his finger on the pulse of constantly and is part of the helping groups to do that.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, these two men got together and put together a podcast that actually the 4th episode is dropped today. And the podcast is called
A Stone of Stumbling, you said?
Yes, A Stone of Stumbling.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get to it either through that or through Candlelight Christian Fellowship's social media platforms, YouTube and all the other ones. They'll link you to it. I've been watching it on YouTube. And these two, like, theological giants. Yeah. Man, people often tell me that when we have Jason on, they love it, but it's like they got to do a rewatch because it's really deep.
It's very heady.
Yeah. This puts us to shame. Like, it's not even, but it's so good. It's so rich. And basically
it's
what
like
they're doing,
trying to tear through Jordan Peterson's maps of meaning. And you're just like, I need to go back a third time. What? Like, yeah. That's so,
but what they do is they bounce off of each other really well. And what they're tackling is Israel, and in the context of history, all the way up to today, and the context of how we should view them. Yeah. And it's phenomenal. Nice. It is everything that we couldn't get into with Jason when he was here. They dissect it. Nice. And it's a phenomenal watch. They really know what they're talking about. These guys are, studied men in Hebrew and Greek and Aramaic and all these other languages, and it is a fantastic watch. And I'm actually going to watch the 4th episode that dropped today after we're done here. I'm really looking forward to it. So the first one I think is like an hour-ish, and then they tend to be about 30 minutes long. So they're not that long, but the fire hose of information that you get in that 30 minutes is mind-blowing. If you have even a little bit of a questioning on where you stand with the current situation in the Middle East right now with Palestine and Israel, you won't when you're done with this. And,
which is yeah, because that's some stuff that we started to try and scratch into, and I don't speak 5 languages. It's like, fuck, dude. Over here at Modern Relics, we're on our 3rd go of Rosetta Stone Spanish. Like, give us a minute here. But
yeah, let these guys. If that way,
I'm very interested.
We can point to them. Yeah, we can always just go. If you want to know, go to those guys. They know. And
so where are you consuming this? They're on YouTube then as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, check them out.
So yeah, maybe we'll put a link in the bio or whatever. I don't know. I hear other YouTube guys say that all the time. Oh, we'll put a link in the bio.
Yeah,
I don't know how to do that.
Put a card.
I don't even know if it's
somewhere,
if it's possible. I just thought it would be fun to say. Yeah. So that being said, that's kind of what I've been consuming besides snobby sci-fi.
Besides head up your own assery content.
Right. Yeah. This is a different type of head up your own assery content. I'll tell Jason.
Oh my gosh. We're going to have signature shirts from quotable moments from the show one day. I promise. Well, yeah, I encourage anybody that enjoyed that, because I've got most of the positive feedback from in aggregate from our episodes are from when Pastor Jason comes on and stuff. A lot of folks really enjoy that, that reach out to me, which is good news. And you can reach out to both of us. modernrelicspodcast@gmail.com, by the way. Send us a line. But yeah, please check him out. I'm excited to learn that as well. We probably have a couple more. I think that's it. That's really all I had this week.
I
don't know what you got. What do you got?
2 more, maybe 3, but probably 2 more weeks of broadcasting from this particular spot.
Yeah, let's go.
We will be moving it locally in town as of May 15th. So we are moving locations. So I will try to get back on as quickly as possible, but it will be determined by
be a little touch and go, which is fine. So, I know the house up on the space station you guys got is going to be really exciting to move to. But no, ultimately, thumbs up though. Are you excited about that? Up. Like, am I excited to move? The answer is always no, but like, are you excited about,
this is actually going to be the first move we've had since we've moved from Seattle, which was a hectic move.
Right.
And then the next one was a hectic move because we got told that we had to be out in 2 weeks.
That's the one where with the fire, the electrical thing?
No, that was the one before that, where the rental property management forgot to tell us that the guy gave us a 5-month, the owner gave us a 5-month lead saying, I'm going to need the house in October. And they told us 2 weeks beforehand. And we're like, wait, what? What are you talking about? You can't do that. They're like, well, we just did. Get out. And so we had to scramble to move out in a heated mess. And then the next one was the fire. And so we had to move here from the fire. And so we haven't had a comfortable move. Now, this one we're planning. We got plenty of time.
Hopefully it's smooth sailing.
Right. And because of the fire, I got rid of a bunch of junk.
Yeah.
So, and when we got in here, I organized the rest of the junk we had really well. So we should be okay. It should be a fairly easy move. And we're moving into a better situation.
Good.
That's less expensive, better location, all of it. So it's going to be great. So,
I'm excited.
We're looking forward to it.
But that definitely means we'll probably be some touch and go for a little while until it gets settled in, because that's hard.
The next 2 weeks are fine, but the 3rd week it might be empty behind me here. And then the 4th week I may
just a microphone on the carpet. You're just sitting on the ground. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, outside of that, thanks for watching, everybody.
Heck yeah.
Really enjoy that you guys come here and listen to us ramble and talk nonsense to each other. So it's cool.
And definitely if you're not conversational but you like what you're hearing, I think the best support you can have for us to keep doing this, just drop us a quick review, even a 1-line review, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're at. Just give us a thumbs up. We love it. And we'll come back as soon as we can with some more stuff. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.